Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Wrestle-Rama. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the May 1993 issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, where they asked the question, WrestleMania without Hulk Hogan? With these men on the card, who needs him? We're going to get a full-color centerfold of The Undertaker. Something funny about that WrestleMania 1993, we see there Yoko and Brett would have been featured in the main event. However, Hulk Hogan did wind up being on the show, teamed with Brutus Beefcake against IRS, then later on defeating Yokozuna for the WWF Heavyweight title. Let's take a look inside. Mail order, subscriptions for the WCW magazine, wrestling's most popular game. This was a board game, not a Nintendo or PlayStation game. Good shot of the Rockers there. Marty Jannetty, Shawn Michaels. There's some letters written in by readers. Taking a look at the 1992 awards issue. There's Double J Jeff Jarrett jumping on one of the Moondogs in Memphis. Great legendary tag team, Doc and Gordy, Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. And here they look 10 years ago in PWI, so 10 years prior to this issue would have been May of 1983. And there's Jimmy Superfly Snuka, undoubtedly the most popular wrestler in WWF at that time. This was before Hulk Hogan. Taking a look, there is a bloody Shane Douglas being carried away by Too Cold Scorpio. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I believe that's Brad Armstrong in the corner. Shane Douglas in WCW, about less than a year later. No, actually in 93, so later this year he would have been in ECW. Right there we see the Wrecking Crew making their WCW debut. Lex Luger and Masa Chono. There we got the Moondogs and Richard Lee, Mike Samples, Vader and Nikita. Vader was a beast back around this time. 92, 93, such a dominant WCW champion. There's another mail order for another wrestling game. And for the kids watching this nowadays, you couldn't click and order stuff online. There was no internet back then. You had to fill out these forms, send your payment, whether it's a check or your credit card info. And 4 to 6 weeks later, you would get what you ordered. No 2-day prime delivery. From the desk of Stuart M. Sachs. Another mail order for some magazines. This was actually one of my favorite Christmas presents each year, was getting the subscriptions to the magazines. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, The Wrestler, and Inside Wrestling. 3 wrestling magazines a month, man. I was a happy kid. There's Ric Flair, who around this time was leaving WWF and returning back to WCW. Chris Benoit. Max Moon, who was Paul Diamond. From the looks of it, I believe that's Skinner, Steve Kern on the shoulder. And there's Hulk Hogan. Little article on some up-and-coming talent. There is Mike Sampson with Polish Power, Ivan Putski. Here's the article if you want to screenshot it and read it. There's another up-and-coming talent, Ron Cumberledge, or at least who they said was up-and-coming. And over here, Tex Slazenger, his partner with Shanghai Pierce. They would later become known as the Godwins, Henry O. Godwin and Phineas I. Godwins in the WWF. Great shot of Stone Cold Steve Austin, then known as Stunning Steve Austin, and Flying Brian Pillman, double teaming Ricky Steamboat. Another mail order for some wrestling videotapes. There's Vader and Ron Simmons. August of 92, I was at the Baltimore Civic Center to see Ron Simmons win the WCW title from Big Van Vader. And then later, December of 92, I was there to see Vader regain the title from Ron Simmons at the Baltimore Civic Center. Here's an ad for a 900 number, 149 per minute. Kids, get your parents' permission. I remember the WCW hotline like I just heard it on TV. 1-900-909-9900. Scouting report. We see there Too Cold Scorpio, Tim Horner, Yokozuna, Marty Jannetty, Doink, and Eric Watts. Here's the rankings. Top 10, singles and tag, and the individual federations. Hold it there if you want to screenshot it and read it. Over here, we got the most popular, most hated, and we look at Smoky Mountain, IWCCW. And over here, in the smaller print, you see ECW. Baby ECW, the Sandman, Rockin' Rebel. Some familiar names. Look at WIN, that was a local Maryland federation. Ratings analysis. Order form for WCW Slam Jam. $9.95 on cassette, or $12.95 if you want it on the compact disc, the CD. And there's some of the talent, their theme songs. Press conference with Ron Simmons. Another great shot of Simmons and Vader. Are you crazy enough to root for Cactus Jack? And yes, we are. As far back as I remember seeing him in like 1990, 91 at some Joel Goodhart shows. Him and Eddie Gilbert had some incredibly hardcore, crazy matches, barbed wire, pinfalls count anywhere in the building. So yeah, people loved Cactus even back then. There's Cactus and Steamboat, Cactus and Van Hammer, and Cactus and Abdullah the Butcher. Medusa and Sherry, let's hook 'em up, in the immortal words of Cowboy Bill Watts. I believe they were actually supposed to wrestle on a Goodhart show. I can't remember if it happened, but I'm pretty sure it was supposed to happen on a Goodhart show. Some great action shots there. And this was something cool in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Each month they would have a centerfold of, different wrestler. This month happens to be The Undertaker. There's a little bio they write on him. If you want to screenshot it, read it. But me and many of my wrestling buddies had these centerfolds in our rooms, in our lockers at school, all over the place. Let's take a look at this one of the Dead Man. Pretty cool, huh? And this is just a close-up on that wrestler. Greatest match, favorite maneuver, toughest opponent, most hated opponent. Here's another mail order form for Pro Wrestling Illustrated Weekly, which was their attempt at a weekly newsletter. Trying to compete with the Wrestling Observer and Pro Wrestling Torch back then. WrestleMania without Hulk Hogan. There's Mr. Perfect and Razor Ramon, Yokozuna, Shawn and Brett, Giant Gonzalez and One Man Gang, Luger and Flair. Kind of funny they used WCW pictures talking about Hogan and WrestleMania. There's another shot of Razor. There's the Steiners over in Japan. Macho Man and Flair. And there's Undertaker. Muta, Sting, Simmons, Liger, the Steiners, exclusive color coverage of the third annual WCW New Japan Supercard. I love these shows. I believe the first one they had was in 91. And they were always great shows with great matches. There's some more great shots. You see Liger, Steiners. Look at that. New into the WWE Hall of Fame, the Great Muta in Massachono. The Ultimate Warrior in the WWF. Who needs who more? Iconic photo right there. Hogan and Warrior. WrestleMania 6. With the two big posters in the background. And there's Warrior and Hercules at an independent show. Great shot of Bigelow and Rick Steiner. There's some more little order forms, moving forms. Look, kindly give us 8 weeks advance notice to update your subscription. Pillman and Liger. One of the best matches I've ever seen live at the Baltimore Civic Center was Pillman and Liger. I believe it was like Christmas of '91, maybe Christmas week. There's another magazine that was available back then, Wrestle America. I didn't really get that one that much. Continuing the Q&A with Ron Simmons. Simmons and the legend Harley Race. Little cartoon on Hulk Hogan. Continuing the Cactus Jack article, there's Cactus and Van Hammer. Cactus and Tom Zink, the Z-Man. Another mail order form for some old wrestling magazines. Over here. Great shot there, Rick Steiner. More order forms for wrestling school, wrestling mask. And if you look there, the teachers were Exotic, Adrian Street, and Miss Linda. Sweet Stan Lane and Ricky Morton. This would have been from Smoky Mountain area. Heavenly Bodies versus the Rock and Roll Express. The Bushwhackers. Orndorff and Hogan. Great feud. Back in '86, they drew big houses all over the place. Another little cartoon. Back issues of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. They go back to February of '84 up to May of '93, which is the current issue. I had all of these magazines and then some. I had totes and totes and totes of these magazines. Legend Lou Thez. Great photo. Taking a look at some other wrestling magazines available. I tell you, back then, there had to be at least 10 different wrestling magazines available each month. Little look at two other ones, Wrestle America and Wrestling Superstars. I did like Wrestling Superstars. Didn't really get Wrestle America that much. Arena Reports. This is where fans would send in results of shows that happened in their area. Again, this was before the internet, so you couldn't go online and see the results. So unless you had pen pals or somebody out of state you talked to, this was the one of the main ways to get those results. And see, you got a ton of them. It was always cool to see what was going on in other areas, especially on the smaller independent shows. Some international results. This month in history. Continuing the Ultimate Warrior article. There's Warrior and Hercules. Continuing the Medusa and Sherry article. And the back of the magazine. Wrestling Inquirer, Ric Flair drops, loser leaves WWF match. And this is kind of where they just put late breaking news that was happening as the issue was going to press. Flair lost that loser leave match to Mr. Perfect. Was back in WCW in February. Sapphire returns to wrestling. Benoit makes WCW debut. Rock and Roll Express. Around the globe. And Hot Shot. There's Johnny B. Bad and Scotty Flamingo, soon to be known as ECW Raven. And of course, the last thing you see is another mail order subscription. If you want to get these magazines delivered to your home each month. And there's the back with some 900 numbers and different ways to call in different countries. Hope you enjoyed this look back at the May of 1993 issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. We're going to have a bunch more of these coming up in the future. Let us know your thoughts. And don't forget to check us out online, wrestlerama.com. And until next time, guys, take care and see ya.